Hey guys, how's it going? Today I want to share 8 garden fails with you, from this year at least. You know, we tend to want to share things that are doing really well in our garden and share pictures of beautiful things, but that's not reality, I don't think, for any of us. And I think all of us have wins and fails every single year. So I have 8 in particular this year that I want to share with you, some of which are weather related, some I don't have an explanation for, and some of them are completely my fault. So the first one is behind the greenhouse. Let's head back there. Well, I think we can file this under the I have no idea what's going on category. These are the North Pole Arborvitaes behind our greenhouse. We planted 5 the very first fall we were here when we put the greenhouse in. So they start right here. Clearly they're a little bit taller. And this one, like, they're dying. I don't know, like, okay, so there's several things that we always think of if we see a plant struggling. First thing is water. Is there a water issue? These are all receiving ample water. When we had the other 2 removed, we dug around in the area. There's no water like sitting there, so they're not sitting in it, which could be another reason why they would start doing this. Then I think about other weather things, so wind, winter burn, all those sorts of things. But the odd part is that all of these arborvitaes are hooked into the same irrigation system as the rest of our arborvitaes along the west side, which are largely, I think all but 2 of them are doing phenomenally well. They look beautiful. I'll show you the 2 behind our vegetable garden that are kind of struggling, but that happens. I expect that, but I don't expect a whole row of them to start looking like this. They started this last year, and what could have happened, this is like the most likely explanation, I think. We have several backpack sprayers. You know, one has, like last year we would have had burnout in one of them, which is an herbicide. It's for natural, it's organic weed killer. And then we have one that has Captain Jack's dead bug, which we spray usually on evergreens like this. We'll spray them once a year. During that, there's like one time of year where spiders kind of attack and they create webs all over your evergreens. So we'll spray around that time. I'm wondering if those backpack sprayers got like mixed up somehow, and these got doused maybe with burnout, and it wasn't enough to kind of kill them right away because they were so big. Maybe it was enough to kind of hurt them, and they were struggling to kind of keep up, and then once they hit this summer with our extreme temperature and all the wind we've had, they just couldn't do it. So anyway, you know, you kind of go through the whole list, the whole checklist of all the things, like, is it something I could change so that we can try to, you know, get these plants to turn around, and we've tried just about everything. So anyway, that's garden fail number 1. Before we move on to garden fail number 2, these are the couple of arborvitaes that are looking a little bit stressed behind our vegetable garden. This also looks like a herbicide drift to me. And I know that sometimes, you know, there's some weed control that goes on behind. And I don't know if maybe there was a drift or something like that that happened on the back. The reason I think that, as opposed to like windburn or sunburn, is because none of the other ones are doing it. I would assume that if they were going to be stressed by something weather related, they would all have a little bit more of a uniform look. But anyway, we're keeping our eyes on these, making sure that they have plenty of water, and hopefully at least these couple bounce. Number 2 is the unplugged pink salvias that I attempted to plant as a centerpiece in all of these containers. So while I wouldn't call this a fail because they're absolutely gorgeous, I could plan better for next year. So you can kind of see the salvia is trying its best to pop itself out of here, and it's a new salvia. So it was a little bit of an experiment, and I know they're supposed to grow between 14 and 30 inches tall, but knowing that they could stay on the 14-inch side of things, depending on where you have them, pairing them with a Super Tunia Vista bubblegum was really poor planning on my part. I should know that, like, bubblegum just wants to be like the star, and it is in this case. So anyway, while it does have pretty blooms, it just couldn't keep up with the vigor, so it kind of looks like I don't have any centerpieces in any of these pots. I did plant it on its own though in the Versailles garden in the ground, just as a test. So let's take a look up over there. So around this urn I have Denim and Lace Russian Sage, which is glorious, and Sprinter boxwoods, which have struggled a little bit with spider mites this year, which is typical for us with boxwoods. But I planted, and I typically do plant annuals in between the 2 of these, and you know, while it looks healthy and there's some color on it, it just kind of did the same thing in the ground. I was expecting it to grow a little bit more like Play in the Blue salvia, or I was maybe hopeful that it would. That plant, I think, could hold up in those pots as a centerpiece, and I was kind of hoping for that kind of vigor out of this one, and just I'm not seeing it so far. I'll probably try it again though. Number 3 is my tomato growing experiment out here on the new property. So I wanted to try out the Florida weave method of staking, which is where you've got stakes or T-posts like this, and then you run string from one to the next, and you like kind of sandwich your tomato plants in between the string, and as they grow you put new strings on the stakes. So it eliminates the need for a cage. It helps you keep your, like, you have to keep up on pruning them a little bit more so that they can, you know, fit in here. So typically it keeps your plants healthier and keeps yields really high. The problem with it out here, so I've got them on drip systems, so we've got consistent water, but they are very, very exposed, and we've had a very extreme year, lots of wind, lots of dust blowing, extreme heat, and those three things, wind, dust blowing, and heat, will cause leaf curl like this. So almost immediately they got this severe case of leaf curl, which they don't have a disease. They're just doing this in a response to the weather, in an effort to not lose any more moisture. So, you know, I'm not sure that there was actually anything that I could have done differently in this space. I have not paid attention to it like I should. I didn't even intend on planting tomatoes out here at all this year. I just had a whole bunch of extra ones that I'd grown from seed, and I thought, well, I could give them away or I could experiment. And I thought for a while, well, maybe I spread myself too thin and I shouldn't have done this when I can't pay attention, but I couldn't, you know, I can't really control what happens out here with the weather. So, and I think that's what's going on. Once it cools down a bit, which it's starting to, they may pick up and start growing, and we'll have a beautiful fall crop. And my tomatoes up in the raised bed garden producing beautifully gorgeous plants, but they are protected by the Arborvitae hedge. So anyway, I have learned a lot from this experiment, and I do like the staking system. I think it's a really efficient way of doing it. So it's probably something I will repeat, even though the tomatoes themselves look pretty poor. Number 4 actually involves 2 different crops. The first crop I tried in this bed, which is going to be raspberries next year, but I was unable to get my hands on the fall gold variety to fill up the bed. So I put some sweet potato slips out here, one of which took. This is one sweet potato plant right here. So had all 25 that I put in here lived, I don't know what happened in this bed. It would have been just a complete chaos mass of leaves. But I put those slips out here straight, it was like 100 degrees that day or really close, and I had them sitting in a cup wrapped in a wet paper towel for a couple of weeks on our north facing kitchen windowsill. And I put them right out here into 100 degrees out in the exposed wind, all of that. And of course, all of them crisped up and died, except for this one, which the top of this one did die, and it had to sprout up new from the roots. So that was my one fail. And then number 2, I've got like this heap of horrible looking blue Hubbard squash plant. I don't know what in the world. I do see some eggs. Maybe that's what's going on. But you know, I've looked at this plant like several times, and I don't see any living squash bugs anywhere, which is really weird that I can see the eggs. And all of my other vine crops, if you just take a look right over there, look wonderful. They're all producing, all looking really, really great. And these just look horrible. It's getting water. It does get a lot of wind right here, but so are those. So this isn't unexplained. Maybe I'll get a few little fruit off of it, and I'll call that a win. Number 5 are the annuals that we planted underneath our maple trees along the west side driveway here. Now this area looks great. It looks the best it has all season, and it's the best one out of all 5. I'll show you the rest of them here in a second. But my intention was to plant just Supertunia mulberry charm in here, which looks great now. And usually, like, it's been such a stellar performer for us, both in the ground and in land, and in containers throughout the years, that I thought, oh, it's going to do just fantastic in here. And it stayed small, and it got really yellow, and it just didn't do anything for the longest time. And we actually had to replace a few of them. So I came in and I planted some lobularia. There's like a violet night, and this is Snow Princess. No, this is Blushing Princess. Anyway, I just thought, well, I gotta fill some of this space in here because like these Supertunias are not doing it. So they have kind of picked up and they're starting to look better, but let me show you the rest of them. The next one looks fairly decent too, but you can see a lot of mulch still, and usually by this time we don't have any ground showing in this area. And I think a couple of things went wrong. We had replaced the drip in here, and there wasn't quite enough drip in the beginning, so they weren't getting enough water. And I think that's the reason why we had to replace some of them in the beginning. And then after that, I think that they get too much shade now. I think these maple trees are casting, I mean, you can see right now, these plants need full sun to really perform and do the best. And right now they're in shade in the part of the day when they really need to be in the sun. So that's something, like I'm thinking next year, surefire begonias will be great under here. Something that can handle a little more shade. This one's looking okay, but you can see like right here, I had one. It's just kind of like sad. Over here, a little crispy. Is the drip working there? I don't know. Yeah, it's wet. Who knows? The next one's the worst, I think. Lobularia looks great. Supertunias, like I should just pull them. This might be the first year ever that we do something for fall in here as opposed to leaving our summer stuff in through the end of the season. But I am thankful to have some color here. I mean, it's still a little bright spot. You know, it's better than having nothing here. I was hoping that these would perform kind of like our Supertunia Bordeaux has behind our chicken coop. We should run back there really quick. This is more of the look I was hoping for with the Supertunia Mulberry Charm. I popped some Supertunia Bordeaux in here, and it's phenomenal. It looks so, so good. It's in there with some Osteospermum Bright Lights Yellow, White Wands Veronica, which I honestly, I should trim that back mid-season, but I never do because it's so covered in pollinators all the time. So it's a little bit flopped at this point, but it's still just like a massive color and plants, and it's a really fun spot. Number 6 is our Limetta hydrangea hedge that we had to replace this season, and we did a video about it, so I've talked about it, but I still, for 2021, this was a garden fail for us because it was something we had to replace because of our kind of neglect to a chlorosis situation we had over here. Hydrangeas in certain areas of our garden tend to be or show very strong symptoms of an iron deficiency, and if you don't stay on top of it, it can get so severe that it can kill your plants, which I think is what happened to these. They had sufficient irrigation, I think they had the right amount of light, but they just didn't have the nutrients they needed to survive. But we learned through that situation that we're going to have to probably treat these preventatively with chelated iron, possibly, and then keep working on the soil around them with iron tone and soil acidifier because we have high soil pH, to just kind of keep these plants happier. Now these are looking great. They haven't skipped a beat since we planted them. These are the Little Lime Punch. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what these do, because if we can get these to perform how I hope they will, if they have the right nutrients, we'll have a beautiful lush hedge of hydrangeas right behind this hedge of sprinter boxwoods. Number 7 are all the bulbs we planted last fall in containers, hoping to have a beautiful display of spring color. Of course, we're standing in front of the greenhouse where I've got our summer annuals planted, so these are clearly not the bulbs we planted last year, but this is the area where I planted them all and kept them all, and I'm not sure if we have very much footage of that, but I'm not sure what went wrong. We ended up with enough containers to do a display very similar to this one. I think I used pretty much the same pots in a grouping on either side of the door, and it was gorgeous, full of daffodils mainly. And then I had enough pots, a couple more, to scatter around the kitchen bed area, flower bed area. But the rest of them, I'd have 2 bulbs come up in the pot, and the rest of the bulbs looked fine. I dug around in there to see if maybe they had rotted or if an animal had come and stolen them, but all the soil looked not disrupted, so I didn't think anything had been digging in them. So I just couldn't figure out, was it a moisture issue? Was it a weather issue? Was it too cold or not cold enough? But why did these daffodils come up and these didn't? I have no idea. It's a mystery to me still, but we'll still keep trying it. And number 8 is the giant blue spruce tree that fell over. This is right where its trunk was. It fell this direction. It kind of snagged our honey locust tree there. You can see the Persephone statue nearby, kind of as point of reference, but it dramatically changed the look of this area, and I've done no cleanup in this area since it happened. In fact, I've got more pine cones I can gather as well. But while we couldn't control the weather, and we couldn't have known that was going to happen, and there's nothing we could have done to prevent it, we did learn after looking at the root ball the importance of removing the stuff around B&B trees, balled and burlap trees. They usually come in burlap and rope, twine, wire cages in some cases, but this spruce tree was 30 plus years old and it still had its wire cage with baling twine tied around it in the ground. And so the fail on our part in this situation is that we ended up planting one of our trees on the new property in the wire cage. Well, I didn't, Paul and Aaron did, but we realized it when we were all done, oh no, I think that one was still in its wire cage. So Aaron did a bunch of research, and the research pointed to the wire cage will rust out and it'll be fine. But I think that might be for more wet climates. We are so dry here, and it's proof is in the pudding. When you see 30 plus years of wire basket still intact under the ground, it's probably a good idea to remove it. In fact, we should run over there. I'll show you the spruce that the wire basket's still on. We still have to remove it. This is the blue spruce that still has its basket. The other 2 that we planted don't have a basket on them, but this one, I don't know, we were tired. I remember that day. It was a long day. We were all tired, and this one just got kind of missed. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come in here at some point this season, and the soil's all settled back down around that root ball already, so it's gonna take a shovel. But we're gonna dig in a few spots, snip that wire, and try to get out as much of the basket as possible without actually digging the whole tree up, because I think that that would actually be worse for the tree, especially after it's probably rooted in decently this season, and it's looking pretty good. I'm happy with it, but I don't think it would be happy in a lot of years. And I don't want, even if I'm not the one here in 30 years, I don't want this falling over on anybody else's watch either. So anyway, those are my 8 garden fails for this year so far. And there's other things. There's a lot of little things I could show you, you know, crops that only kind of halfway came up, or, you know, a tree that's struggling here or there. And we all have those things. And I kind of just wanted this to be maybe an encouragement to you guys, because it can get overwhelming and discouraging sometimes when you see all of these, like, we're all flooded with these beautiful images and things, but it's not the whole picture. You know, all the little things that get us to the beautiful successes, it takes a lot of fails to get to that point, I think. And so it's good to talk about those things all the time. Like, I don't want to know everybody's failures all the time, but it's encouraging for me. Like when I see this beautiful garden that I've been following for a while, but I see that they're dealing with, you know, whatever, something I've dealt with before. It's encouraging to see that, to know that we're all kind of on the same, we're all in the same boat. So anyway, I hope your garden is faring well this summer. Hope you're having a great day, and we will see you in the next video. Bye.